How's everyone doing tonight? Such a different feel to be up here when I'm usually up here rapping, and instead I'm going to be telling a story. So it's a little bit of a different vibe for me, but it's a good vibe. I'm glad to see so many faces. This is amazing. So when I was first asked to be a part of this event, I didn't really know which way I was going to take it, whether I was going to try to write a poem or a spoken word piece about trees, or whether I was going to tell a story. So I decided to start by doing research, and I wanted to look at what the world would look like without trees. Have you ever stopped to think about it? Can you imagine a world without trees? It's a frightening thought. Initially, what may come to mind is going without things such as paper products, simple things like oxygen, firewood, wood for building, and even though it wouldn't be one of the most devastating ones, thinking about the visual loss that would, all the beautiful, colorful trees that we see in the fall, the beautiful skylines and sceneries that trees provide us, it would be a scary sight. And as haunting as that all sounds, it would get even scarier, because us as human beings, as we all know, are very dependent on trees and forests for things like food, shelter, and heat, because we use wood for stoves and fireplaces and things of that nature. Temperature increases would also occur because we wouldn't have those big luscious shade trees to hide under when the heat and the sun is beaming on us. There would be a disturbance to our water cycle. That would have a deadly effect on billions of people and livestock. Our air would become filthier. It would be full of airborne particles and pollutants like carbon monoxide and nitrogen dioxide. In addition to the air, soil, without the filtration from the trees, would also become full of hazardous chemicals and pollutants. And without trees holding together the soil, land masses would break and fall into the ocean. So that would affect us greatly as well. Not to mention the climate changes that would only increase, because they're already been rapidly happening, even though not everyone agrees that climate change is the thing, and there's all those conversations, but regardless of what you believe, those effects and those changes are happening. Practically half of our oxygen supply comes from Practically half of our oxygen supply is produced through photosynthesis in trees and other land plants, with the other half being produced in oceans by microscopic marine organisms called phytoplankton. But this oxygen resource wouldn't be enough to sustain us. As a child, I remember climbing trees outside of the BART station in Oakland, California, and staring up at the beautiful redwood trees that stand hundreds of feet into the sky outside of San Francisco. And I hope I never forget the memories of eating sweet, juicy plums and nectarines from the trees in my grandma's backyard out in LA. I was devastated when I went back to our house one summer to discover that they were no longer there. Fast forward years later, I found myself wanting to create some kind of connection with trees with my, at the time, toddler son. So I taught him to show love to trees by hugging them. And I know the term tree hugger has a negative connotation, which is whack. There's nothing uncool about hugging trees. I will admit, hugging trees became a bit much at times, especially when I was trying to get somewhere in a timely manner, and we kept having to stop because he wanted to hug trees along the way. But now and then, and that he's older, I find myself wishing that he would still do that. Thinking about my relationship with trees brings me to stories like the tale of Adam and Eve and the significance of trees in that story. And even if you may not believe the story, or you might believe a certain telling of the story over another, I find the ideas of trees growing in paradise beautiful. That would mean trees exist beyond this world, and according to some scriptures, so did we. Throughout history, trees have held a major significance to many nations and cultures across the world, and are even viewed as sacred. I didn't want to come up here and bring stories that weren't my own to tell. I wanted to find stories and connections with trees as close to home as I could get. So in my research, I looked into the Uwi people of Toga, Africa, who I traced ancestry to through my mother's father. The Uwi people hold the babao tree with great regard. This amazing tree is said to live for thousands of years and can reach 100 feet into the sky, and their trunk diameters can be as wide as 30 feet or more. But new research is showing that 2,000-year-old baobab trees are suddenly dying due to changes in rainfall patterns in Africa as a result of global warming, and at least one of the 8 baobab species could be on the brink of extinction. When I look at trees that surround me in my home country of America, my thoughts tend to get a little darker. For the most part, my relationship with trees is a positive one. But sometimes when I look at trees, I can't help but thinking about the lyrics of Billie Holiday describing strange fruit, leaving blood on the leaves and blood on the roots. Black bodies swinging in the southern breeze. I'm grateful that I've never witnessed a lynching, but if trees could talk, how many could say the same? Have you ever walked through a forest or near a tree and wondered what stories could be told there? What lives were lost? What treasures lie hidden? Though I've never seen a lynching in person, I have seen pictures and I've heard horror stories, stories enough to fill a whole museum. Last year, the National Memorial for Peace and Justice, and formerly known as the National Lynching Memorial, opened up in Montgomery, Alabama, as a national memorial to commemorate the victims of lynching in the United States. They have cataloged a total of over 4,000 recorded lynchings. Strange fruit. Is that all we are? Is that how we got here? In Islamic scriptures, specifically a surah in the Quran, refers to the tree in the story of Adam and Eve as the tree of eternity. Trees are referred to a number of times in the Quran. In the Quranic telling of the birth of Jesus, or Isa, the Arabic name for Jesus, his mother Maryam, due to the pains of childbirth, was driven to the trunk of a date palm tree. She found solace in the shade and the tree. She found solace in the shade of the tree, and she found food provided to her by the dates that were ripe enough to eat. And a little side note, and something I think that is fascinating and worth looking into, is the effects that dates have on the body during pregnancy and labor. In Islam, trees are to be respected and shouldn't be unnecessarily harmed. And planting a tree is regarded as a charity. And the planter is said to receive blessings from all the creatures that benefit from that tree, even after the person is no longer living. It is also reported that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, "If the hour, the day of resurrection, is about to be established, and one of you was holding a palm shoot, let him take advantage of even 1 second before the hour is established to plant it." Which is beautiful to me, that even if the end of the world was upon us, one should still take time to plant a tree, or any type of seed for that matter. So what's stopping us now? Because as much as it may seem like it is, the world hasn't, and it isn't ending yet. And regardless of the reason why, we need to strengthen our relationship with trees by caring for the ones that are here and planting seeds for tomorrow. If you've been paying attention, you've heard of the forest fires in the Brazilian Amazon, and so far in 2019, there have been more than 70,000 forest fires in that area. And in California this year alone, there have been over 2,500 forest fires, burning an estimated 21,400 acres. And those are just a couple of the cases. As I was doing research, I found so many more. I could probably sit up here and talk the whole time about all the different forest fires that are happening and all the ways that our trees are being destroyed. So I think it's safe to say that our world is kind of on fire. Now, I'm no expert on trees, and I won't claim to have the greenest thumb. But what I will do is challenge myself and us all to do what we can to make this world a little greener and to do our part a little bit each day. I'm so grateful for this opportunity to come up here and tell my story, and I'm grateful to see all your faces, and I thank you for your time.